Welcome, friends and warriors, to another episode of Power Over Pink. I am your host and survivor, Tara Cam, and today I'm so excited to bring to you another survivor story, a warrior that I got to meet at the Young Survivor Coalition in Atlanta this year, 2025, and I know her story is so inspiring and you're going to want to hear all of it. So Amy, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about you and your diagnosis and all the things that you feel comfortable sharing.
Sure. So I am currently 43 years old. I turned 43 in March, about a month ago. I am 2 years out from my initial diagnosis. I was diagnosed just after the age of 40, or at age 40. It was January 2023. When I was initially diagnosed, I was diagnosed as stage 0 DCIS, which in my mind, for having a breast cancer diagnosis, was the best one to have, because I thought my mom had that specific diagnosis, and I saw what she went through, and it was hard, but doable, manageable. My plan was to have a lumpectomy, radiation, and then start tamoxifen. Then I met with my surgeon, the breast surgeon, and they decided that we wanted to do a pre-op MRI, which led to a couple of other suspicious spots. So they did another round of biopsies on both breasts, which didn't show anything different than the initial DCIS diagnosis. So I thought, great, we'll have the lumpectomy, we'll move forward, that'll be it, we'll be done. Then I had my surgery, and once I had my surgery and got the pathology from that, everything changed. I was upgraded to stage 1B, and there were a few different components. They found a total of 3 tumors. They were all small, but there were 3 of them. They found invasive ductal carcinoma, and then I was also HER2 positive.
Okay.
And
That's
I was
a big
also
change.
a big change. Yeah, I was triple positive. So it went from DCIS to triple positive because I was ER, PR, and HER2 positive. And I look back now and I laugh because at the initial diagnosis at the stage 0, the one thing that I kept saying to people, it's scary having breast cancer, but at least I don't have to go through chemo. At least I don't have to go through chemo. There's that, it's going to be fine. And then I spoke with the doctor and found out that I was going to need to have chemo, which was just a blow. It was terrifying. It was just, fear of the unknown. And of course, I'm going to lose my hair. And so that was really a shock to the system to go from, something so easy, which is a relative term when you're talking about a breast cancer diagnosis, but, something so easy to just such a change. And of course, when I had my lumpectomy, they did not get clear margins. So in March of 2023, I had the first surgery. And that's, again, when we found all that new stuff in the pathology. So in between my first surgery and my second surgery, which was in April, I did seek a second opinion just because, chemo is, to me, it just felt like such a huge thing. And I thought, well, I want to make sure. I want to make sure that this is what I definitely need to do, that this is the right decision. So I went to Dana-Farber in Boston, who's fantastic, very well known. And they actually said that my oncology team at Women and Infants here in Rhode Island was one of the best. That my particular oncologist was fantastic, very well renowned. So they said, yeah, we agree. We think chemo is the right plan for you. And then, of course, having the re-excision surgery to get the clear margins. So that's what we did. So in April of 2023, I had my second surgery, my re-excision, and we did get clear margins, which was great. So I was done with surgery. And then in May of 2023, early May, I had my port put in. And then I think it was May 11th, I started chemo. So I did 12 rounds of the weekly Taxol, which I had been told was like the milder of all the chemos, but that I would still lose my hair, which did ring true. So I did 12 weeks of Taxol with the Herceptin for the HER2. And then I finished chemo in July of 2023, and I continued with the every 3 weeks Herceptin until April of 2024. Actually, I think it was Friday, I just had my 1-year final infusion anniversary, which was also the same day that I had my annual mammogram. So it's weird how all of these crazy things keep happening. When I was in Atlanta, for example, at the summit, that was the 1 year anniversary of my first surgery. This crazy universe and all of these like different, I call them cancerversaries, keep
Yep.
popping up at the same time that there's like something else going on. It just all kind of aligns.
Wow.
But I mean, I'm here now. I'm 2 years out. I'm healthy. My mammogram was clear, which is great.
Yes.
And I'm feeling good and I'm feeling strong. So it was a tough road and not one that I would ever put on my worst enemy.
Right.
But I also think that I've grown a lot as a person personally, and I've just gotten stronger. And, it's for me now, it's all good. So
Yeah. So a couple questions came to mind when you were telling me your story. Did the doctors ever say like how they missed three smaller tumors with the breast MRI and all the imaging? Like, did they give any insight on that?
they didn't really. When I had initially met with my breast surgeon, she did say that because of the one mass that they knew was there, that there was a potential that there could be an invasive component. But I assumed that that's not going to be the case.
Right.
So, and I think it's just, the way that they go in to do these biopsies, it's such a small area that they're going. So it can be
Mhm.
easy to miss. But yeah, no, they didn't really have any
Okay.
specific, reasoning for missing that. But from what I've read and learned, because I've joined a lot of different, breast cancer forums and support pages and all of that. And my story is not uncommon. I've
Yeah.
learned that a lot of people have had a similar situation where they start off with one diagnosis, and then basically once you get opened up, everything changes.
I think that's great to touch on, to talk about, because I think so many of us just want to check boxes and moving on to the next thing. And
Uh-huh.
so you feel like, okay, I'm having my surgery, then I can move on to the next thing. But it's so uncertain. Every step of it is uncertain.
Right.
Every box there are no borders, you know? So that's good to touch on that, just to kind of let people be aware that their diagnosis may change too.
Yeah.
And there's nothing easy about biopsies or even hearing the word cancer. But
No.
when you do add in the chemo aspect, it does up the ante and up the fear and up the possibilities of, it feels huge. It feels like a huge thing. It did for me too. So I
Yeah.
get that. I do. Now you mentioned that your mom had DCIS. So was it genetic for you?
It was not. No,
Okay.
and I went through all of the genetic testing. I was negative for
Mhm.
BRCA and, everything else. They did a pretty widespread panel and I was negative for all of it. So they say it's all environmental.
Yeah. So have you done any research on that on your own end as far as like hormone disruptors go or anything like that?
A little bit. I haven't
Mhm.
gone fully into the rabbit hole yet. I have recently started working with an app called Yuka. So
Mhm.
you can scan, hair care, makeup, food products. And what's nice about it, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it,
Yeah,
but
I
if
am.
it's, yeah, a lot of us are.
Yeah.
If you scan something, it'll give you that rating. And if something's bad, it will at least give you a recommendation of a comparable product that is cleaner and better for use. Because I think, once we go through this, we're all kind of scared, and I think
Mm.
it opens our eyes to the things that we put in and on our bodies.
Yes.
So
Very much so for me.
yeah.
Because you start looking at the environment and then you start hearing crazy words like xenoestrogens and hormone disruptors and all these things. And so
Right.
it becomes serious
Yeah.
because who wants to go through this again? I mean,
Right.
honestly, it's
Right.
not easy the first go round. So we want to do everything we can because I know, I know lots of women. We met lots of women at the YSC summit that are multiple survivors. Like they've
Right.
had it a few times. So
Yep.
just kind of doing whatever we can to eliminate those factors is always a good thought process in my book. But also live a little, there's some balance in that realm.
Right.
But
Right. Of course.
so you mentioned that after going through everything, it kind of changed your outlook on, life and everything. So do you want to expand on that a little bit? Anything that it's pushed you to do or change?
Yeah, pretty big change actually. Directly following my 10th round of chemo, and I might get emotional, so apologies in advance, but I was married for 14 years. and it wasn't the greatest, there was no abuse or anything like that, but we had a rough go of it. And I would say that honestly, the latter half, the second half of our marriage we were just really unhappy. We fought a lot and we stayed married, I think, for our kids. I do have 2 children. They're currently 8 and 11. But after my 10th round of chemo, we'd had a fight and I decided, that's it. I'm done. And I asked my husband at the time for a divorce, and I finished my treatment. I finished chemo. And about a couple weeks after I finished my last chemo, I said, I'm done. And I moved out, moved in with my parents temporarily with my kids, and stayed with my parents for about 5 months until I kind of got back on my feet, got my own place and things like that. But it was definitely something that I don't know that I would have made that big jump if it weren't for this diagnosis and everything that I went through. I think that going through this, like I said, it definitely made me stronger, but it made me realize that life is really short. We don't have a lot of time, and the time that we do have, I want to be happy. I want to be proud of the life I'm living. I want my kids to look at me and see a mom who's strong, a mom who's happy. And I did not think that my marriage was indicative of that. So I left it, and I can honestly tell you that I have 0 regrets for doing so.
That's a big decision, but I agree with everything. Life is short. I mean, that's scary though. It could be scary. It could be scary like facing cancer to face a divorce. So that's 2 big things that you went through all at the same time. But
yeah, it was
congrats to
terrifying.
you. Yeah.
It was really something, looking
Yeah.
back, it was the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And your kids will be able to look at this one day when they're older and understand and appreciate how much of a warrior their mom is,
Yeah.
what you've gone through and what you fought for. So
Yeah.
that's a big change. Well,
Yeah.
you look really good for only 2 years out. Are you feeling
Thanks.
good?
I do. Yeah, I feel great. My hair is not straight like this. I still have the chemo curl. So, I have to actually use a straightener to get it to look like this. But, that aside, no, I feel good. And one thing that I'd love to share with you is that, so this was my second summit in Atlanta where you and I met. I had gone to Bonita Springs, Florida in September for YSC's Wellness Summit. And when I was there, I made some amazing connections, and I came home feeling just even more, it was just life-changing. And so when I came home in September from that summit, I immediately went to the YSC website and I looked to see if my state had a face-to-face coordinator and a state leader, and it did not. So I got in touch with Amanda Nixon from YSC, and I was like, how do I do this? What do I need to get started to run the Rhode Island group? So she sent me an email, we did a little training, and now I'm super proud that I run the Rhode Island group.
Yay.
It's the Young Breasties of Rhode Island. I actually, I do a lot of posting on Facebook to promote the group, so much so that I caught the attention of a news anchor. And this past Friday was the local news to talk about YSC and share my
No
group.
big deal.
Not really, no. It's exciting. And for
It
me,
is.
it's my way to do something and give back to this community that I feel like has supported me so much. Like I said, these connections that you make at these summits, they're lifelong, and it's it's such a great support system to have.
Honestly, just to touch on that for a second, congrats on doing
Thank
that and
you.
stepping into leadership. That's a big move too, but I know you have a lot to offer as far as support groups go and just having friendship and helping others kind of navigate this. I actually started a face-to-face group here in my hometown as well with 2 other
Awesome.
ladies just about 3 months ago we started. So
Nice.
the end of this month will be our 3rd one. But when I went to the summit, as a survivor, I have this channel because I want to have these connections and to tell your story and to get all this out there. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I had a friend of mine suggest that I go as a vendor. It was my first time doing that. And to be honest, a lot of times when I've gone to local support groups outside of my own, it was hard. It was a reminder of what could be, so the fear of reoccurrence or just sitting around talking about cancer was very heavy. And I ended up leaving, I don't know, more nervous, I guess. I don't know how to put that into words, but it didn't sit right. So I was worried going to a summit surrounded. I'm like, for a whole weekend, how am I going to handle this? Is it going to be okay? But I came home and I was talking to my husband about it. And if whoever's watching, if you've never gone to one of these breast cancer summits, let me just say, do it. Go, but go. Because And it's not because breast cancer is a club you want to join, but God, we've all been through hell. And every single person I met, all walks of life, all different backgrounds and nationalities, and every single one of them were so much love, like so much love.
Yeah.
And I'm a churchgoer. I love me some people. But even this was more beautiful and in the more depth, I guess is the word I don't know how to put it into words, but it was just one of the most wonderful things I've ever done.
It is. They say it's the worst club with the
Yeah.
best members.
It's so true.
Because you do. I mean, like you said, you meet people from all walks of life, but we all have that one thing in common. We were all diagnosed with this awful disease at young ages. And, so we're now coming to these summits to connect with people who get it. And that was one of the things that I talked about in my news interview, is just how huge it is. Because when you're going through it, personally, I feel, especially us, the younger generation that's diagnosed, when you're going through it, you can talk with your friends, you can talk with your family, your support systems, but they don't get it. But when you are with a group of people who they've been through what you've been through, they feel what you feel, they've been there, they get it. You've walked in each other's shoes to an extent. I mean, all of our diagnoses are a little bit different. We have different treatment plans, but there's a similarity for all of us. And it really is huge having that support and that camaraderie and that understanding.
Yeah, I mean, it truly is. And you walk away uplifted and encouraged, and you have this whole tribe of people cheering you on and supporting. And I mean, it's just been the most beautiful thing. And then to have so many young ladies be willing to share their stories with me from that event.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a big part of it too, is this younger generation that's facing this so young, that we are more willing to share and talk about it, because we know the benefit of getting it out there and talking about the hard things. And, when you talk about what you've gone through, something hard, it helps someone else kind of understand how to navigate that same thing. Like just knowing that, your diagnosis can change, or, you think you have it figured out, and it might, just be flexible throughout the whole thing. So, wow. Well, congrats on being on the news.
Thank you.
I hope you get lots more coverage, and I hope your group really grows. I'm sure that it will.
I hope so. Because like I said, it's great to have a sense of purpose and to give back to this community. Even just going through my journey, I was very, very public and vocal about it from the beginning, posting on Facebook. I posted weekly when I had my chemo treatments. And because of that, I've had a number of women reach out to me for different reasons. Some just saying, you inspired me to go and get my mammogram. I was putting it off, but why would I do that? And then I had an old college roommate who reached out to me just before the summit. And she was like, I'm freaking out. They found something abnormal in my mammogram and I'm so scared. And I don't know how you did this. And we were texting every day and I walked her through it, and ultimately it ended up being nothing. It was benign, which was fantastic.
Yes.
And then recently, just this past weekend, I had another girlfriend say, I found something and I've been terrified to get a mammogram, but then I thought about you and I saw your post and I thought Amy would smack you for this. So she said, I scheduled it and I'm going and I'm going to face whatever it is. And I was like, that's great. Yeah. And hopefully it's nothing, but God forbid if it is something, reach out. I'm here for you. I'm here to help you in any way that I can. So just being able to kind of provide that support and encouragement, it's a good thing.
It's a really good thing. Yeah. And keep doing it, because you don't know who's watching. Right. You don't know who's taking it in and who you've helped that you haven't had reach out. So I'm proud of you for doing that. So
thanks.
Well, what was probably, I guess, if you were to give yourself advice, that whole question of if you could go back and talk to you at the beginning of your diagnosis, knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would tell yourself?
I would say to breathe, that it feels scary and it feels insurmountable, but we're strong. We can get through this. We can do it. And you would be surprised at just how much you can handle, and with grace.
Yes. So much grace and resilience, and it makes us stronger. Well, anything else that you would like to add? You've got a beautiful story. You've come out on the other side. You're giving back. You've grown. You've changed, life-changing moments. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. Sometimes I forget, or I even try to kind of minimize it a little bit, it's no big deal. And in some ways it isn't, but in a lot of ways it is. And I have to remember that, it is a lot that I've been through, but I'm just, I'm happy to to share my story. And I'm happy to be here for anyone who feels that they need, support or encouragement. And for anyone who's, like you were on the fence about going to a summit, I would say do it. Absolutely do it, because they are life-changing. And I will tell you what, there was a group of us that all connected at the summit in Atlanta. We now have a group chat. I think there's like 20 of us. It goes off all day long, but just little texts, we'll talk to each other about, a doctor's appointment or a show that we watched or whatever it might be that we're feeling. And of course it's usually related to cancer, but you meet your people. And even though we live on opposite sides of the country, some of us, we're still staying connected, and it's really nice to have those connections. So, like I said, and like you said, if anyone is thinking about it, but they're not sure, take that jump, because
Yeah.
I was afraid. And I almost brought my sister with me to the first summit. And then I said, no, I need to do this on my own. And I did, and I made friends, and I'm so glad that I did. So
Yeah.
if you haven't and you want to, do it, because you won't regret it.
No, you won't. And you won't be alone ever.
No.
Like if you sit, somebody's going to sit with you. And,
Absolutely.
that's a very welcoming, warming, loving community, because we've got
Absolutely.
nothing but love after going through what we went through. That's really good advice. Well, you're a beautiful light in this world, and I'm so thankful for your time. So thank you for telling me your story.
Yes.
And what was the name of your support group again?
It's the Young Breasties of Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. And so if they want to find that group, are you on Facebook under that group?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
It's
Any
a
other
Facebook group.
handles on that?
Nope, just that for now. I'm hoping
Okay.
to grow that and expand it, but for now we're just on Facebook and then our in-person meetups.
Perfect. It's a good start.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here, you guys. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for another warrior story. God bless you.
Thank you.